Welcome, everybody, to what is actually reportable and what's not. I am your host, Jennifer Diamond. So today's session is all about what is actually reportable so that you can decide in minutes without having to Google or join an online forum debate. I'm curious to know, what are some common scenarios that make you second guess yourself when determining when a payment belongs on a 1099? And while you guys are answering those questions, and also I'm curious, what's one word that describes how 1099s are making you feel today on January 20th? Feel free to use the emoji reactions to let me know how y'all are feeling. We're all in this together. All of us sort of hating January to some extent, but when we're together, it makes it a little bit easier, right? Cool. Some confusing scenarios for folks. Looks like debited from bank, but you can't tell how it was initiated. Oof, that's a big one. Can't determine how someone was paid, determining when it's a business and when it's not. These are all really great. Yeah, it's wild how many areas you can get stuck in the easy 1099 process. It's just a little postcard. It's just 4 fields that you have to fill out. What could be simpler? It's the most complicated, easy thing that I know of. Okay. So today we will be going over how to determine reportability. We're going to give you a framework for that. We're also going to unveil the 1099 decision tree. So if y'all don't already have a copy of that, we're going to share a link for that so that you can download that. It is available in the resources tab of your 1099 problems app. We'll drop that link in the chat here in a minute. We'll also go over some classic pitfalls in the 1099 process and what we can avoid. And we'll also dig into some of the payment method confusion. That is the fastest growing area of 1099 confusion and 1099 mistakes that we're seeing, right? Used to be that W-9s were the worst, right? Just trying to get, and I think it still is to some extent, trying to get those W-9s is the worst. More and more people are adopting the workflow of collecting those W-9s before payment or at time of payment. I'm curious to know, raise a hand, or not raise a hand, but give me an emoji react if you are already collecting W-9s at time of service as best you can and how that's helped. Cool. So here's a quick little agenda. We will have time for Q&A at the end, but again, we're going to go through the framework. We'll go through some payment method clarifications, and then we'll do some real world scenarios together and have some funsies. Okay, and here's a little bit about me. I am accounting afflicted. I'm a recovering CPA. I served 7 tax seasons in public accounting. And now I do CFO consulting and business coaching and education, basically all around making accountants' lives easier because our profession is so crucial for the small business community, and the small business community is essential for our entire economy. So it's a big deal, and y'all are very important. So I want to do everything that I can to support you. One thing that gets my goat is seeing so many people burn out before February even starts because 1099 season is such a drag. So the best way to approach 1099s is you start with everything because everything is reportable unless it's not, right? In your IRS instructions for 1099s, you will see more exceptions than you will see rules, right? So there are many different approaches that folks will use. I'm curious to hear in the chat what y'all are using for your accounting ledger software. A lot of accounting ledger softwares have 1099 tracking capabilities built in and features built in. Looks like we've got some folks on QBO. Curious if we've got anybody on FreshBooks or Xero or Zoho or some of the other ones. So what's great about the accounting software is you can tag transactions and mark them, and you can tag vendors and mark them all throughout the year. And that'll be a recurring theme throughout the virtual roadshow is we're trying to identify as much of the process as we can that we can pull into the year-round cycle instead of cramming it all into January. So it looks like we've got some, great processes, QBO and Xero, but we use Double for 1099 and W-9 tracking. Brilliant. QBO to Double to tax 1099. Awesome. I've used Avalara Track 1099 to file. That's a great one. QBO does have a built-in 1099 e-filing service. It does have mixed reviews, which is why a lot of professionals recommend Tax 1099 and Track 1099. Double is great for identifying those 1099 eligible items. So there are various different automation tools that have really changed the game when it comes to 1099 preparation. I'm curious to know how many of y'all have heard or shared the adage, when in doubt, send it out. I feel like as long as I've been doing 1099s, I've heard this, when in doubt, send it out. Because at a certain point of 1099 season, you're just over it and you just want to get things done. When in doubt, send it out. That does have a lot of advantages because in a lot of cases, it really does no harm to have a 1099 when it's not required. There's no penalty for that. So it's a great sort of catch-all. However, there are some disadvantages that I don't hear as often when folks say, when in doubt, send it out. The IRS has reminded us again in October of 2025 that we want to avoid double reporting, and that is reporting payments on a 1099 that really belong on a 1099-K. So that's referred to as double reporting. That actually does carry penalties. So we must exercise caution when practicing the when in doubt, send it out. So you want to be really careful on making sure we're not double reporting the 1099-K reportable transactions. We're going to go into 1099-K payment methods a lot more here in a minute too. So here is your framework. And it looks like we do have, if you have not already, y'all go ahead and please download that 1099 decision tree because you'll see that it outlines this framework really well. The first rung, really, or it's like process of elimination, right? You start with everything and then you just want to eliminate as much as you can until only what's reportable is left. So the first hurdle really is, why was the payment made, right? Personal expenses, not reportable. Only business payments made in the course of trade or business are reportable. How about reimbursements? Bona fide expense reimbursements. Those are not technically income to the recipient, so we can't report that as income on the 1099. So expense reimbursements, not reportable. And if it's product only, not reportable. The first sort of grays that we go through is, why was the payment made, right? And your accounting software is crucial for being able to track those things. Next, we've got who received the payment. The W-9 form is what we use to get the payee's information. That has their name, their tax ID number, and their address, 3 of the 4 things that are going to end up on their 1099. And then it also has their signature field for them to verify their status. A lot of folks, when they are going through their process of elimination, they'll go from who received the payment right into what was the payment for, right? Have y'all seen this approach? Anybody do this approach where they go from eliminating who is not eligible to receive a payment to what is not eligible? That's how I learned. Then the 1099-K came along after I first learned doing 1099s. The 1099-K came along in 2010 and changed the game for us a little bit. The 1099-K was invented to help everyone. We're from the government and we're here to help. So the 1099-K is a form that the banks and payment settlement entities, the folks that are processing payments and settling those into your recipient's bank accounts, those folks are responsible for reporting those qualified payments on Form 1099-K. So we must exclude anything that goes on 1099-K when we're doing 1099s. And that's a big chunk. So might as well eliminate those out of your process of elimination before even looking at what the payment was for. It saves a lot of extra work. Once you've eliminated the non-reportable payment methods, then you have a smaller pie to work with on identifying what the payment was for. And identifying what the payment is for helps you figure out what the reporting threshold is. This is the why step. Was this for trade or business? Personal payments are not reportable. This is the who as well. So is it a non-incorporated US-based payee? And this is the how. Oops, this is the how. The 1099-K. If it goes on 1099-K, it does not go on your 1099s. Let me say that again. If the payment belongs on Form 1099-K, regardless of the 1099-K threshold, if the payment belongs on Form 1099-K, it must be excluded from your 1099s, or else it's double reported. Okay? Then once we've eliminated those, then we can dig into the threshold amounts, because it's $10 for royalties, $600 for services and most other income types, as well as rent, prizes, medical and healthcare payments, legal settlements. And then it's $5,000 for direct sales of consumer products for resale. $5,000 of direct sales of consumer products, that can go on either Form 1099 NEC or miscellaneous. Medical and healthcare payments, if paid to a corporation, still reportable. So there are more exceptions than rules in the 1099 process. And then some of the exceptions also have exceptions. So we've heard the exception, incorporated payees don't receive a 1099 unless they do. Attorneys, they're going to have to get a 1099, and medical and healthcare professionals still get a 1099 even if they're incorporated, as long as the threshold is met. So this process of elimination, it's the whole point of the game is you want to avoid doing a 1099 if you don't have to. Essentially, you're trying to get to the stop lane. The trickiest part, the one that's causing the most 1099 confusion, is the payment methods. What's a payment method that really confuses you? That just makes you second guess, makes you look it up, makes you go to a Facebook forum and ask your peers, makes you go to Reddit, makes you go to chat. Danielle says Melio. Yep, that one. Quinn says Venmo. Jennifer says Venmo personal. Debbie, yep, Venmo and PayPal donations. Exactly. Jessica says PayPal because of friends and family payments. Yep, absolutely. Stripe credit card donations. Ooh, intercompany transactions. That's a great one. So when company A pays a company B expense, that sort of starts diving into kind of agency payments, right? And there are a lot of facts and circumstances that come into play. So those are edge cases, those tricky cases. I actually find my 1099 INT things get me the most tripped up, figuring out when and why it's reportable. Definitely painful. And who has time for that? Payment methods that confuse everyone. Mostly all of them. If it's not cash or check, something on paper that we're used to from the 1900s, then we get a little confused. We have all of these new fintech apps that are so helpful and infused with AI, and they are developing faster than our semantics around 1099 instructions can keep up. I am running a survey on LinkedIn, and I'm curious to see what y'all think about this little quiz, because I feel like this is the center of most of the debates, honestly. I put an image up on the screen. Which payment methods, use the chat to drop your answers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 1 and 4, whatever combinations, which payment methods are always excluded from reporting on 1099, NEC, and miscellaneous? Test your knowledge. Got a lot of ones, some 2, right? Cash and check, like we said, that's old school. We know what that is. That one's always included. 1. Any 3s? Anybody want to take a stab at? And it depends. Rebecca, warmer. Jessica, you got it. None of these are always excluded. Depends on the source. Okay. So we have heard so much. If it's a credit card or a debit card or a payment card, like gift card, etc., or if it's a payment app like Venmo, PayPal, Stripe, etc., then that's 1099K. We don't mess with it, right? So we're chucking out all the Venmos, we're chucking out all the PayPals, we're chucking out anything that goes over an electronic payment. We're chucking out all the cards, right? And we're so excited with ourselves. But some of us have noticed some odd inconsistencies, right? Who said Melio before? Danielle, you said Melio before. Melio is the first one that made me start pulling the thread on this sweater and got me stuck in this whole rabbit hole. Melio, if anybody has not heard of Melio, Melio is a payment app that hit the market saying you can pay your vendor with a credit card even if your vendor doesn't accept credit cards. That's not going to qualify for the credit card transactions that are reportable on Form 1099-K. So there are some credit card transactions that do not meet the 1099-K standards. So those ones still belong on 1099 NEC and miscellaneous. There are a handful of payment apps that have this technology where you can pull funds from your credit card and the service will just turn that into a check or an ACH. And those are 1099 lane. Then, oh, Danielle, I'll say that again. There are payment apps that have the technology that allow you to pull money from your credit card account, similar to a cash advance. And then the payment app uses that money, converts it into an ACH or a check or a wire, and sends that off to the vendor. So what they're doing is they're facilitating an electronic payment, but they're not settling funds the way that credit card companies and merchant processing companies do. They're just zapping money. But the vendor's not accepting your credit card. So the vendor's not settling that credit card transaction. They're just facilitating the payment. They don't meet the definitions for payment settlement entities, so they're not subject to the 1099-K reporting.
So Jennifer, you're saying I think where I was getting tripped up, when you're saying the vendor doesn't accept credit cards.
Right.
I'm paying a vendor via Melio, but via a credit card. It's coming out of my credit card, but they're delivering it as an ACH.
Yep.
So what do you mean by the vendor doesn't accept credit card? The vendor I'm paying.
So the vendor, they might accept credit card or maybe they don't, but the Melio payment that they're receiving is either going to be a check, an ACH, or a wire, depending on what they choose. And those payment types that the vendor receives, those are all reportable on 1099. So it doesn't matter that the funds originated from your credit card. It doesn't meet the definition for a credit card payment for the purposes of 1099-K.
Okay.
The 1099-K instructions and then the code section 60, 50, W around Form 1099-K go into a lot of exclusions and exceptions, and these cash advances, these pulls, these fund pulls from the credit card account, they don't meet the requirement. So if a payment app lets you fund that account from a credit card or debit card, but the vendor isn't accepting that payment, then that's breaking the Form 1099-K definition.
Okay, because the person you're paying is saying you can't pay me via credit card, but okay.
So what's difficult is when you're looking at a credit card statement, it's really hard to tell what's a credit card transaction that meets the 1099-K requirements and which ones should be excluded. That gets really, really tricky. When you are working with a client all year round and you know what payment services they're using, you know that they're using Melio, then you know to look through their credit card statement and pull or tag anything that says Melio on it, because that's still going to be includable on your 1099s.
You know what's weird about Melio? And this prompted me to jump on your call today because there's always something to learn about 1099. Makes sense. But I was in QuickBooks. I use QuickBooks to just run my reports of who's eligible for a 1099. And I have a client who uses Melio to pay vendors. And this year, these vendors are not showing up on that 1099 transaction report that you can run in QuickBooks. It's like excluding them. I'm confused about that, and I'll have to dig into that because last year they used Melio to pay these same vendors, and I filed 1099s. But this year, QuickBooks is not tagging them as 1099 NEC eligible.
So QuickBooks has an option in the 1099 tool that is built into QuickBooks, a little checkbox for exclude credit card transactions. And what that's doing is it's excluding anything that's coming from a credit card account in your chart of accounts. It's not pulling from payment method. You can use the reference field in each transaction to exclude it if it needs to be excluded. The 1099 tool that's built into QuickBooks does have a lot of limitations. That's why a lot of folks tend to use it as they'll grab a transaction detail report of all payments to all payees, just grouped by payee, and start going at it through that method. Or they'll use the double 1099 tools.
Yeah, I got
Those are built a little bit better. If you have not already checked out Alicia Katz-Pollock's 1099s in QuickBooks Online course, she does like a 2-hour deep dive on nuts to bolts, everything that you need in QuickBooks to do 1099s. And she does go over some of those limitations and workarounds in that course as well. And then someone else had touched on the Venmo PayPal issue. Venmo and PayPal are digital wallets, and for their business accounts and for any payments that are marked as business payments or for goods and services, they function as third-party settlement organizations for those business payments, but they have to be marked as business to count. So once it's marked as business, it goes into the 1099-K lane. If it's Venmo personal, PayPal personal, friends and family, that's in the 1099 lane. And again, not easy to discern personal versus business. So that requires communication with your client and very often gentle education. It does violate the terms of service for PayPal and Venmo to like commingle business and personal. So they want you using a business account if you're running a business so that you can't accidentally only get your friends and family payments for those business transactions. Does that make sense? So some credit card and debit card transactions are reportable on 1099. Some Venmo and PayPal transactions are reportable on 1099. Zelle is a unicorn all to its own. It's a banking software, so it's like tied to your bank account, but it's a bank-to-bank transfer. So that's 1099. ACH, friends, We've all heard that if it's ACH, we include that on Form 1099s. There are some payment apps that will include your ACH transactions on 1099K. Has anyone heard of a payment app that is including ACH in their 1099K? Anchor is a great software for engagement letters and invoice payments. It's a great way to eliminate your receivables, rather. Payment cards, payment apps, payment services, payment processors, payment platforms, payment marketplaces, so many different flavors. And maybe by the time we end this call, there will be some new technology that pops up on the marketplace to take 3% from us. Bill.com is another one, Debbie. Great question. Bill.com is another one that's very similar to Melio. And this payment method rabbit hole is where I got stuck a few years ago, and what really prompted me to create 1099 problems, the application. So let me share that with you. I'll give you a little sneak peek of 1099 problem. So it started innocent. It started just as a spreadsheet that I shared with some friends, and then it grew because it got more complicated. So here is a sample of the matrix. So I typed in bill.com for my keyword search. Bill.com is a complicated one because it started off as just bill payments. Then they added accounts receivable as well. So now they have multiple, they're wearing multiple hats. Okay. So bill.com is similar to Melio. You can use your credit card or debit card to fund your bill.com account, but then the vendor will receive an ACH or a check. So if the vendor's receiving ACH or check, that belongs on 1099. Similar, you can fund your bill.com account with an ACH. So it's going to come out of your bank account. You'll see it on your bank statement. Again, vendors choosing either ACH or check for that payment. So that payment that the vendor is receiving, ACH or check, that belongs on 1099. So far, so good. Then Bill.com said, hey, we're going to add this option. We're going to allow vendors to choose to accept a virtual card payment, a one-time virtual card payment. If they accept credit cards already, we'll spin up a 16-digit number just for them if they elect it. That now makes it 1099K. Thank you, Rebecca. Exactly. That makes me sick. Who can tell us why it switches the tracks on the train tracks to 1099K if it's a virtual card? Not all at once. I'll tell you. Because the vendor is accepting that virtual credit card, running it through their point of sale system, and their merchant acquiring bank, their card processor, they are responsible for the 1099K of that transaction. So unfortunately, you can see this funding source is any. So when you're looking at your client's books and statements, that bill.com virtual payment to the vendor could appear in the credit card account, could appear on the bank statement, can appear as a debit card payment. You really have to know which way the vendor receives that payment. So you'll need access to the bill.com records, or you will need for your clients to provide that information to you. Yuck is right, Rebecca. Bill.com's newest thing is the accounts receivable product that they have. So for their accounts receivable, they're working with the merchants, right? So they're representing the merchants. And in that way, they are acting as third-party settlement organizations, and they're processing those card payments on your behalf as the seller. So they do meet the definition of 1099K. So for bill.com, Debbie, it depends. It depends on how the vendor takes the payment, and it depends on if bill.com has the relationship with the seller or the vendor. So it's a push-pull. So I'll show you Melio too. There are over 75 entries in our matrix here. So here's Melio the dealio. So Melio, similar, you can fund with ACH or credit card, but the vendor's going to receive ACH or check unless, because Melio now offers virtual card options for the vendors that do accept credit cards. Yep. Jessica, I love you. Well, my membership just paid for itself. Yeah, this is the 1099s are the worst. Researching what belongs on a 1099K when Melio doesn't even make it clear on their website, right? I put links in all of these entries in the matrix. So you can go right to their website, right to their terms of service, right to their support page. I challenge anyone to find on melio.com where they make it clear what is subject to 1099K and what is not. And that lack of clarity across the profession, across all of these different payment methods and choices, we don't have time for that. And now that the penalties are growing for the double reporting, we don't have time to get it wrong. So when I was researching payment methods and what's excluded years ago, it made me cry thinking that all my friends were wasting the exact same amounts of time on the same Google searches, reviewing the same terms of service. Okay, everybody get your decision tree out if it's handy, because I'm going to fire off some questions for you. Feel free to come off of mute for this rapid fire round, because I'm going to give you some scenarios and I want you to use your 1099 decision tree. I will pull it up on screen so that you can have it. I want you to use your decision tree to make these determinations. First scenario is the client paid $1,000 for services to a single member fee. I want to know, does it belong on 1099 or 1099K? Or if it belongs on 1099 or not at all. So feel free to drop it in the chat or come off mute and shout it out. Paid $1,000 for services to a single member LLC. Y'all are so good. How was it paid? See, y'all are awesome. That information is not available yet in this scenario. All you know is paid $1,000 for services to a single member LLC. So far, do you have enough information to eliminate it in your process of elimination? Great. Awesome. So far, that one would be 1099. Okay. I'm going to change the scenario by just one factor. Now you've paid $1,000 for services to a single member LLC taxed as an S Corp. Reportable, not reportable. Good. Eliminate. Excellent. No 1099. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to change one more fact. Now you paid $1,000 for legal services to a single member LLC taxed as an S corporation. $1,000 legal services, single member LLC taxed as S corp. Yes, 1099. Attorneys always get a 1099 unless they don't. All right, next scenario, I'm going to change one fact. Paid $1,000 via ACH for legal services to a single member LLC taxed as an S corp. Yes, excellent, excellent. And lastly, last scenario, you paid $1,000 via ACH through Stripe for legal services to a single member LLC taxed as an S corp. $1,000 ACH, Stripe, legal services, single member LLC, S corp. Yeah. And this, friends, this is why our clients should be paying us the big bucks for making these determinations. It's so easy to get tripped up. All I did was change one fact and it kept changing the answer back and forth. And y'all were smart at the very beginning to push back and say, well, how was this paid? That is the biggest way to eliminate. Good job, guys. Hit me with your questions. Do you have a resource talking about the IRS and double reporting? I do have it in the Q&A section of 1099 problems. Let's see if I can find a link for you real quick. Anyone else have a question while I pull that info? Was this helpful for you? Do you feel like you've gained a little bit of 1099 confidence? Will you be using the 1099 decision tree going forward? Do you think this is helpful for your friends and fans? So we have, not only do we have this table matrix, we've also got discussions. So folks call in with their questions around various different payment methods. This one kind of put my brain in a noodle because their client was looking to use Stripe Connect or Hyperwallet, those are payment services that platforms and marketplaces use, and platforms and marketplaces are subject to reporting 1099K. So his client was subject to reporting 1099K for some of their things. And that sent me down like a little path in a rabbit hole. So that was pretty fun. Really appreciate the complicated scenarios and questions that y'all throw my way, because then everybody else gets to benefit from it too. It's all keyword searchable, right? You can turn on your notifications and find out when we add something to the matrix. We'll be adding more resources. Right now, you can just download a crystal clear high-res image of the PDF. We don't need to be researching all of these things just in January. We can look up the payment methods in March. We can make it part of our month-end close. We can build this into our service agreements and our pricing models and make everybody happy. What do you think? You all on board for saving January? Helping friends stop wasting time on 1099s? Okay. I wanted to leave y'all with this. Y'all are doing a great job. Your clients are so lucky to have you. The whole community is so lucky to have you. You'll get through it. There's only 937 more days left in January. We're halfway through. It's not your fault. It's not January's fault. We'll get through this. And then next year, we're going to have a famous 1099 season. Thank y'all for coming. If this has been helpful, please share with a friend. I really appreciate you spending time. Thanks, everybody. Take good care. Stay sane. Bye, y'all.